All of us are in a pursuit of financial freedom of some way or matter. Now, what financial freedom means to everyone differs, right? Everyone has their own definition of what financial freedom is. But not all of us know how to get there, or have a plan, or have the appropriate strategy to advance forward. And so I tell people all the time, George, the difference between those that are wealthy and those that aspire to be wealthy, the gap in between both of those forces is not money. People think it's money. People really believe that, oh, I'm not wealthy because I don't have as much money as said person. And I don't think that's what it is, man. I believe the gap between those that are wealthy and those that aspire to be wealthy is information. And those that are wealthy have the information to make the money that they need to continue to advance forward. And those that are aspiring to be wealthy are working hard, seeking the information. So what I try to do with this coaching program is I try to bridge that gap. That's why I call it construct. We construct the pathway between people and their financial freedom. And that's through financial literacy. And that's something that, as people in general, unless you're in the know, right? No pun intended, unless you're in the know, um, you unfortunately run the risk of operating life without enough financial literacy to get you to where you want to be.
Right. And do you think like the being in the know has become harder? Because back in my parents' days, or even before that or after that, I'm talking 50s, 60s, 70s, even way earlier than that, 40s, 30s, the code was simple, save up your money, buy property, rent out property, boom, wealth. Now I feel like in our time, 90s to early 2000s, current time, it's become complicated because now it's like we got to consider leveraging debt, getting your principal down payment, figuring out your mortgage, figuring out amortization rates after you buy a property, things like this. Then you have to deal with the legal stuff. You have to register your property, pay, at least in Canada, massive property taxes, follow regulations, and that's just when it comes to real estate. I'm not even talking about like stuff like T-bills, bonds, stocks, shares, equity, mutual funds, trusts, things like that. Do you Back to my original question, do you feel like the information has become more complicated to access?
Absolutely. And it's a multifactorial problem, and I'm down to unpack it with you. I think this is great. But
I'm down to have it unpacked.
one of the reasons why it's become a little more difficult, and I hate to say it, and shout out to the teachers out there. If you're a teacher, I value, I respect you. We need you. We need the teachers. Teachers should be paid more. The whole thing. But the education system is part of the reason why we don't have access to the information. And you might be listening to saying, what did he just say? I'm going to say it again. The education system is the reason why we are having more difficulty accessing the information needed. Because in school, they're not teaching those essential elements that will help you advance financially. And because of that, and since we're more infatuated with astronomy and archaeology and all this other stuff,
Greek poetry.
Greek poetry and Greek mythology and all that, and hey, shout out to Galileo and the whole group, all good. But Galileo is not going to pay your bills. Galileo won't get you out of being paycheck to paycheck, right?
Yeah.
And we go into these school systems, including ourselves, right? Including ourselves. I was a victim of it as well. And we leave there saying, man, I don't know how to balance a checkbook, or I don't know how a credit card works, or oh, but they said I can only pay the minimum balance and I'm good. But why is my balance continuing to increase and I have more debt? And it's this vicious cycle that folks find themselves in, specifically the millennials, right? Because we're the ones right now carrying the brunt of it. Fortunately, we went through a pandemic, and the older generation, we lost a lot of loved ones at that time, right? So people are sliding up. Now the boomers are going up. We've slid up now. And so now we're the ones penetrating the market, but a lot of us are penetrating the market with significant amounts of debt and limited financial literacy.
I completely agree. I feel like we've been encouraged to take on debt without actually learning the ramifications of it.
Mm.
And like you said, the credit card. How many times are we going to see an ad for a credit card? How many times do we see, like in the movies, like every time they want to pay for something, they just pull out the credit card as if it's the easiest thing in the world with no consequences? And it is the problem with schools. I want to point out my personal experience in this.
Talk to me.
Me, I only experienced Canadian high school when I was 16. That's when I moved to Canada and pretty much joined the Canadian educational system. What shocked me is that when I grew up in Dubai, I was taught economics at age 12. We were taught about inflation, we were taught about supply and demand, we were taught that in times of recession you shouldn't tax more, and that we were also like taught what a recession is, like what's the purpose of saving versus investments. We were 12, we can't really go into the whole terms, like we can't really go into like credit system, stocks, loans, amortization, mortgages. We didn't go into that stuff, but at least we knew things like if we spend more if we increase government expenditure, life becomes more expensive. If we reduce taxes, life becomes cheaper. It's a very basic lesson, but it's something I never saw when I entered the Canadian system.
Wow.
We were like, there was barely any economics involved, almost no talk about how to deal with like taxes, like how to report your taxes in high school. And I feel that why that's unique to millennials is because we are the school system generation.
Yes, sir.
My parents, when they went to school, they were only there to learn like how to speak and how to do basic sums. And then like they would go out into the world and figure it out. Their parents would also teach them a lot of that stuff. I feel like there was a period of time, like the economic boom of like the 60s and 70s, where there was so much wealth that life became so job focused. We started hearing about the career woman, the career man, the salary person. They would go to work, then they would come back home, have tea, watch TV, pass out, start the whole thing again. They really had no time to teach us any common sense.
Correct.
And that's like in general, like it's not specifically you or me necessarily, but
Sure.
I feel like that's in general.
That's right.
Our parents expected the school system to teach us all these things. The school system didn't really teach us any of these things. They kind of said go figure out in university. And then we spend all this money learning finances in university, if we haven't gotten sidetracked by like ancient Greek pottery classes. And we spent thousands hopefully learning in 4 years what could have just been a 5-minute YouTube tutorial.
Mm.
And the consequence of that is I got a ton of friends who don't know how to report their taxes. They'll be like, oh, yeah, I'll do it next year, not knowing you kind of have to do it. And they vote, like, not to get into politics, but like they vote based on cultural or media or like feel good stories like puppies or something,
That's right.
rather than, why can't I afford a house?
Mm.
Well, vote for lower taxes.
Powerful.
So I feel like that's from education. We kind of got set up for, don't want to say for failure, but like education did not prepare us for this.